had a clear vision for her future.
She wanted to be in the military.
She wanted to give herself a better position in life.
She'd been meeting with a recruiter.
But then she disappeared.
She would not have fallen off the map.
Even if she doesn't want to talk, she'll text.
Something was not right.
Was she having second thoughts about her future?
Bye. Maybe she just walked away.
She was still trying to find herself.
That can result in like a lot of emotional turmoil.
Was her recruiter actually grooming her?
People were concerned about how close they were.
Maybe he set her up, helped somebody take her.
Stuff like that happens.
Or was it far, far worse?
I was supposed to clean this apartment.
I just couldn't believe that this was really happening.
I'm jealous. I'm not sleeping with nobody.
It's just horrible to think about it.
All I could do was cry.
July 31st, 2021. It's Saturday in Cleveland, Ohio, an old industrial city that's reinvented itself as an attractive place to live.
Cleveland has that small town feel, despite it being an area where millions of people live.
Cleveland has one of the most vibrant lakefronts on the Great Lakes.
It's actually quite large and expansive, but there's something about Cleveland where you just feel like it's a small town.
The cost of living in the area is still reasonable, and it's a great place to raise a family.
Family is what brings Akua Avignon to Benny Washington's doorstep that afternoon. She's looking for her daughter, 18-year-old Audriana Barnes.
Benny is Audriana's boyfriend, and she stays with him sometimes.
And it has been more than 24 hours since Akua last heard from her daughter, which is unusual.
She talked to her every day.
Even if she doesn't want to talk, she'll text. So I still send mine, but I don't get one back. It didn't sit right because she's not going to not answer the text message back.
She had also tried to call Benny, but she couldn't reach him either.
He didn't have a phone that worked properly. It only worked on Wi-Fi. And so if you reached out, he might reach back if he's inside the house. But I got no reply.
Even more troubling for Audriana's mother is that today is her birthday.
She wouldn't have missed her mother's birthday.
Ever since she was little, it was her goal to make sure she was the first person to tell me happy birthday.
That's what really had her feeling that something was not right.
Concerned about her daughter, Akua had gone to Benny's apartment.
I went up and knocked on the door.
Hey, Miss Barnes, what can I do for you?
Is Audriana here?
The question appeared to take Benny by surprise.
I thought she was with you.
He was like, she left yesterday. She said it was your birthday, so she was coming home.
One of 5 siblings, family was always important to Audriana Barnes.
They were very, very close to whatever room she was in, they all were in together. That was the running joke. I didn't need more than 2 bedrooms because they would find their way together no matter what.
And as the oldest, she always had her mother's back.
If I told my little children, like, hey, you gotta clean your room, you gotta make your bed. If I walked away to go do something else, she made sure, like, hey, did you hear what Mom said?
That strong sense of discipline guided Audriana's plans for her future.
Even when she was in the 10th grade, she knew that she wanted to be in some part of the military.
Audriana was a young woman who had real goals and real dreams.
In fact, those dreams were practically in her DNA.
Part of my plans to go to the Marines, but then I had Audriana, so it wasn't something that I did. And then she did her own research and was like, yeah, this is something I might like. So I understood her decision to want to actually go into the military.
Okay, are you sure this is what you want to do?
I'm sure.
Hey, well, I'm proud of you then. Go for it, baby.
She's a young woman thinking about her future.
It was very important for Adriana. Like, she put forth a very good effort. She had signed up for information.
As she neared graduation, she started talking with the local recruiting office.
But would a chance meeting at her part-time job threaten her carefully laid plans?
She met Benny through one of his cousins that she worked with.
I'm so glad your cousin introduced us.
He had his own place, and she still lived at home.
You saw her spending a lot more time over there. She would spend nights there.
This is a young girl that was excited about the relationship.
But even as the relationship turned serious, not everyone approved.
She was only 18 and he was 38.
Everybody had their opinions, and we let her know. We had this conversation plenty of times where I told her it's not a good match.
But Adriana didn't care.
It's like, I'm 18 now, Ma. I can make my own life choices now.
Besides, the family figured the relationship wouldn't last.
She made the decision to go to the military.
Adriana was meeting regularly with Army recruiters.
In fact, Adriana had scheduled an appointment with the recruiter the day before her mom's birthday.
She was like, Ma, I'm just gonna go and go over there and meet with the recruiters and do what I gotta do, and then I'll be back.
But now, 24 hours after that meeting was supposed to have taken place, Adriana has disappeared.
Do you know if she made it to the recruiter's office?
She said she was headed over there before coming home.
He said she left yesterday with one of her friends.
You sure it wasn't the recruiter?
In order to make things as easy as possible on recruits, they will arrange for transportation to and from the interview.
Benny said that might be the case, but he wasn't sure.
I'd never seen a guy before.
Adriana Barnes had her future all planned out.
Ever since she was little, Adriana had dreamed of joining the military.
She was definitely a young woman who wanted to give herself a better position in life and was looking at the military to put herself in a better situation.
Not everybody wants to get out of school just to go back to school.
She'd been meeting with the local recruiting office about enlisting.
But now, after her most recent recruiting appointment, Adriana has disappeared.
Her boyfriend, Benny, said he last saw her when she left for the meeting.
Do you even know if the recruiter picked her up?
I'm not sure.
He didn't know. It was a million things that ran through my mind. Maybe she had gotten in an Uber and something happened.
All her mother knew for sure was that she hadn't heard from Adriana in over 24 hours.
She'd even missed her mother's birthday.
Akua had said that nowhere in the world she would miss my birthday.
Everybody was gonna be together.
Okay.
They were looking forward to the dinner, and she was gonna be there for her birthday.
Instead, Adriana's mom spends the next several hours desperately trying to find her daughter. But it's no use.
I think it was probably about 8:30, after there was no text back, no phone call, there was nothing. And I went to the police and made a report. And they had told me that they wouldn't take it because she was 18 and she's technically not in school anymore. And it hadn't been 48 hours. They weren't supposed to.
Why don't you give her some time? I'm sure she'll turn up.
He kept saying he doesn't feel she's in danger and she's 18, so.
You don't think she had second thoughts about joining the military, do you?
Well, I mean, there were some things she needed to do.
They had told her that she needed to drop about 50 pounds before boot camp started.
And if she changed her mind, she might be avoiding her family.
Adriana's mother swears that isn't the case.
I insisted this is not like her. Something is wrong. If you know her, you know social media is something that she's not gonna go without. She had no social media activity, and even if she was mad at me, this is not my daughter. She's not gonna walk away.
Eventually, her mother's persistence convinces the police.
He was like, I understand because I'm a parent too. And he was like, you know what? We're gonna take the report.
The detective also offered some advice on how to find Audriana.
He gave me some tips on how to get the last location of the phone because we were on a family plan.
But when Audriana's mom tries to locate her daughter's phone, she fails.
Her location's off.
It wouldn't go through because the phone had been turned off and the location had been unshared from everybody. So I couldn't get it.
Does this mean something happened to Audriana? Or did she deliberately turn it off because she didn't want to be found?
Audriana's mom is sure that isn't the case.
She really knew something wasn't right.
Keep trying, and if we learn anything, we'll reach out to you.
Determined to find Audriana, the following morning, Akua reaches out to the recruiter who had been working with her daughter.
I called and asked him if he knew Audriana.
Hello? Hi, this is Akua, Audriana Barnes' mom. Yes, you were supposed to meet with her yesterday.
The recruiter's response takes her completely by surprise.
I don't know her, and don't call his phone again.
And he told me he didn't know her and don't call his phone again, and hung up on me. It makes no sense that if I'm telling you, hey, I'm trying to get in touch with my daughter, you're one of the last people I see that she talked to. Have you seen her? Why would you curse me and then hang up on me?
Outraged, Audriana's mother calls the main office number and speaks to the recruiter's supervisor.
The excuse that I got for him being that rude to me was that he's a young guy, he just started.
Okay, I just want to know if my daughter made her appointment.
The supervisor said that according to their record, she did.
The interview occurred there. There was certain documentation that she needed to bring with her. So we know that she did have her ID and her social security card with her that day.
They had been copied and placed in her file.
But after that, she disappeared.
There was a lot of things running through my mind. Did the recruiter get her? You know, did he take her somewhere?
Audriana's mother passes what she learned on to the detectives and then seeks additional help in finding her daughter.
We have some great community activists here in Cleveland who will help families that are in these types of positions.
They'll contact me. I'll meet with them. I'll request a picture, age, description of what she had on when she went missing. And we brought the team down there and we started warning community searching.
They sent out a mass text stating that we had a missing young lady.
We are so adamant about trying to find missing females, especially Black females, because there's so many Black females missing.
But the longer Audriana is missing, the less likely she is to be found.
We had a sex trafficking ring and a human trafficking ring in our city.
You've got people grabbing up young ladies and then they disappear.
After Cleveland police open a missing persons investigation into the disappearance of 18-year-old Audriana Barnes, her mother launches her own search with the help of local activists.
There were concerns that Audriana could be a victim of sex trafficking.
Right now, a lot of young people are coming up missing. And we have different groups that are doing human trafficking right here in this city.
You got a whole bunch of this going on. Snatching up these young kids, snatching up young adults, young people, and putting them on drugs and things like that.
So that's where my mind kind of went, and we were kind of looking to see if there had been any recent busts with sex trafficking in Cleveland.
Adriana's mother and the activists also do their best to raise awareness.
Different organizations got involved with the Barnes family and were able to help them in creating awareness and bringing attention to what had happened.
We put up flyers all through the neighborhood.
We had search parties with numerous people.
Adriana's boyfriend, Benny Washington, joins the search effort at every opportunity.
If you see her, would you please call that number there?
Yeah, of course.
Thank you.
He called me every day or text me every day. Ma, just checking in, how you doing, making sure you okay. We not gonna give up, we gonna find her.
Benny and Adriana's mother also search his apartment, looking for any clues to where she might have gone.
I was looking for anything that belonged to her that was there, and I didn't see anything.
While they continue to search for clues, detectives follow up on Adriana's mother's concerns about the recruiter.
I don't really care for the recruiter because while she was missing, it was actually the recruiter that I had talked to that hung up on me.
I felt like it was suspicious, so I just instantly suspected him. I wanted to know his name. I wanted to talk to the recruiter myself, face to face, to see what he says.
He was someone that was not a part of their community, so it makes sense that they would feel suspicious about him.
Maybe he set her up and he helped somebody take her.
Maybe he got her out of town somewhere or whatever, because stuff like that happens.
Not that the detectives reveal any of that when they sit down with him.
We're investigating the disappearance of Adriana Barnes.
Okay, have a seat. I heard she gone missing, so if there's anything I can do to help.
Sure, we just need to ask you a few questions.
Just routine, really.
You always want to talk to the last person to see someone in any investigation and verify what they tell you.
So you gave Adriana a ride that day?
Yeah, we do that sort of thing all of the time.
The recruiter picked Adriana up from Benny Washington's apartment building, brought her out to Cleveland Heights where that interview was, and at the end of that meeting, she was then brought back to Benny Washington's apartment.
You drove her home?
Yeah, I dropped her off, but I didn't see her go in.
However, he does reveal that their meeting hadn't gone as well as Adriana had hoped.
She didn't bring all the documentation she needed with her.
She needed her high school diploma. That was an item that she didn't have with her.
Plus, there was the ongoing issue with the fitness requirements.
She wasn't gonna run. You know, it's just something you can't do in boot camp. You gotta run.
She's a good kid.
You sound like you care about her a lot.
What do you mean?
They were concerned about the nature of their relationship and how close they were to one another.
But the recruiter insists it wasn't like that at all.
It's part of the job. You get to know these kids.
She felt like he was a mentor. And when a young adult feels that connection to an adult that's doing what they see themselves doing in the future or what they dream to do, that can impact them in a way where they feel like they have a connection to somebody that they trust.
You got a person that you can confide in.
According to the recruiter, Adriana had done just that.
There's something you ought to know.
He said it's something Adriana had told him on the drive back to Benny's apartment.
She was telling me how she really needed to get out of town.
He claims that she'd expressed a strong desire to leave.
But it's her reason for leaving town that really raised a red flag for detectives.
She was explaining to me how she was sexually assaulted.
Detectives investigating Adriana Barnes' disappearance have just learned the 18-year-old may have been sexually assaulted.
The Army recruiter who'd been working with Adriana said she told him about it while he was dropping her off after their last meeting.
According to the recruiter, the attacker was a friend of Adriana's boyfriend, Benny Washington.
Did she tell you his name?
She didn't, but she did tell me that she filed a police report.
Could the alleged assault have something to do with Audriana's disappearance?
The detectives don't know for sure, but they are satisfied that the recruiter had nothing to do with it.
His supervisor confirmed that he had only been gone the half hour or so that it took to drive Audriana back to Benny's apartment and return to the recruiting office.
The recruiter dropped her off, returned to the office, and all of those things are verified.
Thank you for your time. All right.
Back at the station, detectives are also able to confirm that Audriana had filed a report for the alleged sexual assault.
The report gives detectives the attacker's identity.
His name is Wendell Dixon.
This individual was over to Benny's house and she had went to sleep on the couch. And she woke up to this individual with their hands down her pants.
For him to violate her in that way could be extremely traumatizing.
The police report detailed how Audriana fought off the attack.
She woke up and they began to fight.
What are you doing? Get off of me.
She had hit him in the mouth with a candle and knocked his teeth out.
Benny had rushed into the room, drawn by the commotion.
Benny later told me, yeah, I was gonna shoot him, but she grabbed my arm and said, you can't do that. It's people outside. It's kids outside.
Get out! Instead, Audriana had called the police and made the report. But nothing ever came of it.
Wendell fled, and the police had been unable to locate him.
But now the detectives are wondering, had Wendell simply gone into hiding? Or had he been biding his time?
Maybe he did something to her in retaliation for her going and trying to press charges on him for what he did.
After uncovering the police report, the detectives launch a renewed effort to locate Wendell.
He shouldn't be on the street. He's a danger and he's a menace to society.
But they're still unable to locate Wendell.
Benny doesn't know where he is either.
And you don't know where Audriana is?
He said she got in the car with some recruiter.
Appreciate it.
But where she'd gone after the recruiter dropped her off outside the apartment remains a mystery.
She's a missing person. Do we know that there's even any wrongdoing at that point? That there's any foul play? It's hard to say.
Meanwhile, law enforcement moves on to other priorities.
They've only got so many resources.
Law enforcement is restricted by what they can and cannot do. That's the case in every investigation.
But Audriana's mother and her team of activists refuse to give up hope.
Me and Nakua would start talking every day and making plans to go out for the next day and who we was gonna talk to and how we was gonna do it.
Other activists would come to help. Some of extended family from my side would come and just put up the flyers, look, check the abandoned houses with us, a lot of things. Just looking for anything, any little thing.
We do the rough part. We go deep within the woods, around the water, and we look. But more so than anything, we pray and ask God for direction. And we allow the Spirit of God to lead us in the direction that we believe He wants us to go.
But weeks turn into months with no new leads.
It was 8 months that went by. That whole summer, winter.
It had to be really challenging for Akua to remain hopeful.
We hope against hope. When we out here looking, maybe she just ran away.
But Audriana hadn't run away. It's March 17th, 2022, almost 8 months after Audriana's disappearance, when the property manager lets herself into Benny's old apartment.
Benny and his new girlfriend, Marquetta Wallace, had been evicted on March 11th.
The way the eviction process works in the city of Cleveland is some bailiffs from the housing court go to the property. Once they gain access, They have a company that comes in and moves out anyone's personal items. Personal property, meaning clothing, belongings, furniture.
The people who do evictions don't evict trash, so they left it up there.
And exactly a week later, the building manager went in to clean out the apartment.
But it turns out that Benny left more than trash behind.
This is Cleveland Police. I was supposed to clean this apartment today because we got evicted a couple days ago, and there's something on the porch. It's a dead body.
The manager of a Cleveland apartment building called 911 to report finding a dead body on the balcony of a recently vacated apartment.
Is it a male or a female? I don't know. I can't tell.
The body was decomposed beyond recognition.
Little flesh was still on the bone. The decomposition, it was unbelievable.
Despite that, the apartment manager is sure she knows the identity of the deceased.
It's gotta be Adriana.
Adriana Barnes' boyfriend, Benny Washington, had lived in the apartment until recently.
They just evicted him.
And the last time anyone had seen Adriana was outside Benny's apartment.
She was dropped off at her boyfriend's apartment, Benny Washington, and her mother reported her missing the following day because she hadn't heard from her.
Has the mystery finally been solved?
Don't touch anything else. That's all going to be evidence. And the police will come out and they're going to have people to handle it. Okay? And present the evidence. Okay?
Okay.
When homicide detectives arrive at the scene, they assume that the body on the balcony is Adriana.
We were pretty confident, once Adriana's body was discovered, that the date of her death was on or about July 30th or 31st, because she absolutely would have been in contact with her mother if she was still alive.
It's just horrible to think about the length of time in which her body was on that balcony.
It was close to 8 months after her disappearance.
Confirming that the body is Adriana will require an autopsy. But first, the coroner's office faces the grim task of removing the body.
She was wrapped extensively. If you think of, a mummification and how those bodies are wrapped and wrapped and wrapped in layers, that is how her remains were. They were wrapped in numerous layers of clothing. There were blankets, plastic shopping bags, plastic garbage bags, and then there was like a yoga mat on top of her.
And it's clear that she had been on the balcony for quite some time.
There was a large stain on this balcony underneath where her body had been that was caused by decomposition fluid. That tells you this body was there for a very long period of time, that it decomposed at that location. It wasn't moved there in the days from the eviction to when she was discovered. That this activity all happened right there where it was found.
Word that Adriana may have finally been found spreads quickly.
I got a beep to my phone, and that's when I saw the police pulling the body.
One of the activists had called me and told me that it was all over Instagram that they had found a body at his apartment. And all I could do was cry because I didn't find her.
While Adriana's friends and family grieve, the hunt for her boyfriend, Benny Washington, begins.
The fact that she's found on the balcony of his apartment, he's absolutely suspect number one.
When detectives pulled Benny's rap sheet, they discovered he had an extensive criminal record.
He had been convicted of a prior felony offense of violence.
He's a prey on women and children, the habitual sex offender.
He was convicted and went to jail for child molestation. He's a pedophile.
He was chased out of the neighborhood that he grew up in because of the weird stuff he was doing.
He also had a pending arson charge.
He was somewhat of a psychopath.
But his file doesn't give them any indication to where Benny might be now.
After my daughter was discovered, they flooded the neighborhood with police looking for him.
The detectives also attempt to locate Benny's new girlfriend, Marquetta Wallace.
She didn't come into the picture with Benny until a little bit after Audriana went missing, but certainly had knowledge that she was on that balcony.
Ain't no way possible you could have been in that apartment with that body decomposed like that on that porch. No way possible. And then them days, it was 80 degrees, 90 degrees. Come on, man.
We were interested and prosecuted her because of that knowledge and her failure to come forward and disclose that information.
However, Marquetta does eventually come forward.
After police recover Audriana's body, Marquetta comes down to the station to speak with detectives.
She claims to have vital information.
She knows where they can find Benny.
And when the detectives rush to the location she gave them, it appears she was telling the truth.
He was actually there. They saw him there.
But now that they've found him, the detectives still have to catch him.
When they went to approach him, he ran.
Investigating the murder of Audriana Barnes have tracked down the man they believe is responsible, her boyfriend, Benny Washington.
But when they approached him, he ran.
He's kind of leading the police on a wild goose chase around the neighborhood.
They had to chase him through people's houses and everything.
But eventually the police managed to run Benny down and place him under arrest for murder.
When I found out about the arrest, I felt relieved because it was beating her mother up inside, not knowing what happened to her daughter.
Not that Benny is willing to give the detectives any details once they have him in custody.
Benny did not want to talk. He said he did not like the police and asked for an attorney.
Benny was certainly within his rights.
Although when the detectives sit back down with Benny's new girlfriend, Marquetta Wallace, she is more than willing to give them her side of the story.
Most of all, she wanted police to know that she had nothing to do with Audriana's death.
So, how'd you meet Benny?
I met Benny when he was handing out flyers about her.
My name is Benny.
Yeah.
I'm looking for my girl. What's your name?
Marquetta.
Marquetta. It's nice to meet you, Marquetta.
Nice to meet you.
If you see her, can you call that number there?
Even though she was quote unquote cooperative and was willing to sit down with the police, she didn't admit or really implicate Benny all that much.
And you didn't know the body was on the balcony?
I had no idea that the body was on the balcony.
The detectives have their doubts.
Even though she would give us nuggets of information that might be helpful, a lot of what else she said didn't really seem to be truthful.
No, I didn't know.
And it's hard to believe that she had lived in Benny's apartment for several months and never noticed what was on the balcony.
Stand up. You're under arrest.
At the end of the interview, the detectives place Marquetta under arrest.
She was charged with gross abuse of a corpse. It's a felony of the 5th degree.
And when the autopsy confirms that the body on Benny's balcony is Audriana, the prosecutors charge him with aggravated murder.
Audriana's cause of death was a single gunshot wound to her head.
Will that be enough to secure a conviction when the case goes to trial in May of 2023?
The biggest hurdle, I think, in trying this case is when two people are alone, you know, what happened leading up to this murder. Because I didn't have someone who can say he planned it out.
Instead, they argue that Benny was jealous about Audriana's meeting with the Army recruiter.
Babe, everything went so good today.
You laughing? You smiling? How good did it go?
It went really good. What do you mean?
You trying to replace me?
What?
When Adriana returned to Benny's apartment that day, they had an argument.
You trying to replace me?
Nobody replacing you. You sound insecure.
You've been sleeping around. I know you've been sleeping around.
You talking crazy. He just gave me a ride.
Gave you a ride, all right. How many times y'all been together?
We don't necessarily know exactly what led up to the shooting. We know that she shot.
You sound stupid.
I'll show you how stupid.
One thing can escalate to another, and then you got a homicide.
Once Adriana was dead, Benny dragged her body onto the balcony and left her there.
She went in that building and didn't come back out.
Will that be enough to secure a conviction? The prosecutors wrap up their case without putting Benny's new girlfriend Marquetta on the stand.
She was too much of a risk to utilize as a witness at trial against Benny.
Not that it matters in the end.
When the verdict was read in court, he was found guilty of murder with a number of firearm specifications as well, felonious assault, abuse of a corpse, having a weapon under disability, and he was also found to be a repeat violent offender.
The guilty verdict makes little impression on Benny.
He ain't showed no emotion, no nothing. It was like another day.
He was just sitting there with such a nonchalant demeanor, like he had no care in the world, no emotion, no character, no nothing. He just sitting there, numb.
He didn't even flinch when the judge handed down his sentence.
He was sentenced to life in prison with parole eligibility for the first time after serving 38 years. So he's going away for a very long time.
Although no amount of time is enough to satisfy Adriana's family and friends.
I don't feel justice was served. He actually should have had the death penalty. And that's how I feel about it. Because you still have a chance to go up for parole.
Just the fact to hear the word possibility of parole, it don't make you feel easy because Adriana doesn't have a possibility of living no more.
Being a believer, a Christian, I have to, have a forgiving heart. But sometimes it's hard. If it's my child, I would want him dead too.
Benny's girlfriend, Marquetta Wallace, escapes prison altogether.
She pleaded no contest to abusing a corpse.
She received a nominal sentence for that, unsupervised probation.
I was very angry because the judge was like, oh, I feel like Benny took advantage of her too. No, he did not. She knew. She willingly lived in that apartment knowing what he did to her and where she was.
And whether justice was served or not, Adriana's family is paying the price for what Benny did to her.
It broke my family. She's the missing piece. From birthdays to outings. It's never been the same without her. Everything that we do together just don't seem right because she's the missing piece.
Adriana was a bright, intelligent person who would not have fallen off the map.
She wasn't a bad girl. She wasn't out here drinking and running the streets and partying and just seeking men and laying up. No, that was not her.
She had heart of gold. And it's sad that she didn't get the opportunity to grow and mature into it.